Hey, muy buenas tardes, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And as always, muchísimas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, prayers, time, love, and support. Do know from the heart, I'm forever humble and thankful to every one of you. Gracias. And before I get into the story, do please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again. Now to get into the story on him. Today I want to talk about an old Billy that he managed to stay under the water for many years because he was smart. He knew what it entailed for him to come out on blast, right? Mainly the benefits didn't really override the negative that came with the law, right? So he used other Billy's name and mascara to say they were calling things when in reality he was there. But again, he was real close with a few Billys like that to the point where they would back this play up since they were already out there like that, right? But anyways, I also want to touch about the conflict he had with a new Billy at this time, right? Which was Goko from 18th Street. And the big power struggle that happened in the feds between 18th Street and Southeast behind Batcher from Hawaiian Gardens and Goko, right? But do please allow me to start off by putting some background behind Batcher, right? The Billy from Hawaiian Gardens. Because again, not a lot of people know about him. And now that he's in ADX sitting there, right? He's not really out there like that no more. But with those that are close to him, on a personal tip. But anyways, I heard about Batcher. Man, I was held up with a Raul, so it had to be 98, maybe a little later than that. Yeah, it was 98 before I took off to Tracy, right? But anyway, Raul was upset. Nah, I'm not gonna say just with Batcher. He was upset with certain areas, right, that were bringing heat, and it's not the way they like to function. Basically, you know, a lot of people talk about they were racist, they were targeting blacks because it was in them to be like that. And even though the two Billys that haven't come out to float, right, but are main responsible, let me just say this: those were orders. It was 4 or 5 Billys, right, that I could tell you, but it was two that were constantly pressing the issue that move on people on color. It didn't matter if they were black, if they were, in their words, wet bags, right, or chinos or egg. They didn't want them in the neighborhoods to go ahead and boogie down on them, right? But anyways, that's the reason Raul was upset. So he was gaining at another Billy to reach. At this time, there was a lot of this happening in Southeast, right? Mainly in Hawaiian Gardens, where they were targeting, you know, people that weren't Chicano or weren't from a neighborhood. And this was based on two Billys that was threatening Hawaiian Gardens with getting the green light if they allow communities of, blacks or wetbacks to move into their neighborhood and kind of mess up the little goings and comings they had in that neighborhood, right? And Raul was a real mellow Billy. He tried to mind his business, so he tried to look for an angle to use another Billy to get it out there without having his name to get out there in the drama, right? but he knew what was bad for the organization. Well, at least back in the days, Now it's a common thing. But he wanted a name. And around this time is when Batcher, as a camarada, hit the county and his name came up. And he was in hot water. I'm just going to say this. He was in hot water for many, many, many reasons. But the three main ones was because, as you guys know, he's busted for a hate crime. Well, that's what they have it down, but they were orders. Well, at least that's what he tried to express to Raul, right? When Raul requested an answer, that it was orders from the ones that don't know, They're not out there like that, and I'm not gonna point the finger so the Fed says, "Oh, let me relook at this," right? But anyways, he basically was saying it was orders, but when his paperwork got to Raul, it said a whole different thing. For example, the way he got caught, right? He got caught because he shot himself in the leg with the same gun they had taken the life of a brother. And that's why he got busted. It wasn't like someone pointed him out. It wasn't like, but the worst scenario was that when it reached Raul, basically he stopped a lot of things. He was doing a lot of things, for Sporty from White fans. Again, he was tied to Romo, to Sana, to Champ over here, as, you know, to Pilis on the east side, Flaco, the Pilis from Ramona Gardens or Big Hazard. He was doing a lot, Feria wise, and he was doing a lot of movement. He was pulling strings, like basically bringing neighborhoods to fall in line, right? It is why his name was real question, because when he was in county, things reached over here that he had read it, right? And that's why they requested his court papers, and he didn't. In a sense, he didn't, right? He tried to play it off something to the effect that, Paisa shot him, but he didn't say it like that, right? He said an F wetback shot me, in them words. And I remember it clearly because me, I'm not gonna say I'm super raza or nothing, but when they speak about raza like that, it hits a chord with me. It's one of the main reasons why I never got into being a norteño, because I seen them words that sting, because of my jefa and them. But anyways, at this time I was a pollo, right? I was nobody, just side busting, things work, right? From a seat on the sidelines, and Raul requested, and there was no names mentioned, like people were saying. This is all he stated, right? But Raul still wanted him to get hit. The problem lied that there was too many Billies that were speaking up for him. Because again, he had a lot of people that he pulled, and to some point got at him to get at Sultanito y Sulanito, right? To a Billy, whichever Billy he was pulling from that area. Just think about it. It's in the southeast, pulling from East LA, from Orange County, from West LA. He's pulling feria. That's all that matters, point blank. But anyways, that's not the point of the story. From there, you guys know, I ended up going to Tracy. Raul stood there for a little bit till he parole. And then just different things and topics came up. We figured Raul had pointed that out to different Billies and they were going to look into it, but it never was, He would eventually go to the feds, right? And in the feds, everything got forgotten. I don't even think they even asked him for his paperwork, because within a month, 2 months, hitting the feds is when he got made. But again, he had a sharp head when it came to staying in the shadows. At this time, he was real close with Bobby. He was actually real close with Champ again. Well, with numerous appeals, but I'll concentrate on the Southeast, right? Till I put it together with Romo. And yes, I'm getting there, sorry. But anyways, he started doing things like, for example, get to a yard and be a gusanito to people's ears, right? And be like, hey, this yard, take it over for Bobby. I'll support you to the fullest. And he'll stand there and give orders and basically get someone that don't know what he's doing and make him feel like he's plugged in with Bobby and all this and that, and that he's doing him a favor type of thing. Them tecato things, right? And put that homie face in front while he's there directing things. You know what I mean? He's not getting at Bobby because he's a main member. He has this coming because he's there present. Where he hit the fans was with Big Joe, with Sana, because he tried to do it with Sana. He also tried to do it with Güero Shy, and it just he got a pushback, right? Because at the end, these were Billies that it don't matter if you're there physically. I've been here for years, type of thing. But when it became a big issue was when Coco got made. You see, when Coco got made, Batcher had some type of resentment against 18th Street. He still does, I'm talking to him like he's not alive no more, but not just 18th Street though. He had it out for a lot of neighborhoods that allowed brothers, black homies to get in their neighborhood. You know, there is homies that have that in them. I'm not gonna mention it, but so he starts targeting the neighborhoods, politicking against them, washing them up. And as you guys know, 18th Street has a lot of brothers in their neighborhood for its size or whatever. But if you just think about Compton and Watts, and all the neighborhoods, right before I got to the feds, it even reached the state that Batchard had 5 homies, 2 from Watts, 1 from Compton, and 2 from 18th Street, Southside 18th Street, washed up, and he couldn't prove on the wise, right? And again, he was making a lot of feria, and when a pili is making feria, other pilis start feeling like you're not paying your respects. Mainly pilis that ain't doing nothing, but they feel they're entitled to get in another member's pocket, right? But anyway, Coco got made and he started pressing back. He's like, hey, every time you get to a yard that there's 18th Street members there, you start trying to politic against them or try to put them in a cross. And it's a constant thing. So, Coco's a young knucklehead, right? I'll just say it like that. And he didn't care. When Batcher started throwing around that him and Bobby, it was basically me and the brother Bobby wanting things like this. Goko said, Chales, you're going to treat camarada from 18th Street just like you would treat another camarada, and given the due process, right? And you're gonna give an explanation because I want it. You know, Coco loves his neighborhood. It's something you gotta admire because a lot of Billies they lower that flag down, right? And I'm not here to glorify this individual either because he started a conflict with the mess too, right? But at this time, man, I remember what was it? Stick from Norwalk, Gangster, and Stomper from Hawaiian Gardens that they were around the yard with Goko. Basically got sent on a bogus mission. It was a failed mission. They send them over there to try to collect to a brother. Basically, this was what was said by Goko. Go over there, the brother owes so much money. Tell him he has 24 hours to comply or he's getting removed. I mean, anybody that has some common sense, how you gonna go speak to a different race inside a prison and that? Of course, it's gonna boogie on the spot, right? The brother ain't gonna take it to that point because it's disrespectful. How you gonna first off collect something that he didn't make the business with you? Second of all, give him a time limitation and then a threat. And it ain't gonna go down like that, especially in the feds where it goes up a lot more. And Coco told him, hey, if uh, if he says anything negative, go ahead and start whacking him. So it's what happened, and it caused, a big old conflict on the yard amongst, brothers and homies and whoever was with us. And at the end of the day, Coco didn't know nothing. He did not tell the camaradas to go over there and collect, even in that aspect. They took it on their own, trying to make some feria behind the scenes. They seen the camarada get rolled up, miss, and they knew this debt was there. So they tried to collect it for themselves, behind the scenes, trying to be snakes. This is what he put on the homies from Southeast. And it was just kind of like, you're messing with my homie, I won't mess with yours type of thing. Again, Bobby and Batcher were like nail in dirt, right? So, but we put that aside. Just think about the camaradas that were following orders to the fullest, willing to give their freedom away, their life for the orders of a Billy, when everything was just a setup to wash you up, to tell his brother we could play this. Where's the loyalty that everyone brags to go into prison and earn? But anyways, Batcher did the exact same thing. Wherever he was at, again, he would politic. He would push for homies from 18. One was a perfect example where Joe had something established real good, and he went up in there, got 4 or 5 homies from 18, brainwashed him to take that yard from Joe under Bobby's name, and that he'll be right there guiding them. And when Joel came down and stomped down, all of a sudden, he didn't know nothing. The mess I was them for. You get their actions. Basically, they're playing with camaradas by getting in their head. At this time where he politic against Joe is where he came out on blast, right? That he was a main member. And what he was doing, it was mainly behind Art Romo from F Troop. At this time, he started feeling betrayed, and he, well, what happened to him? They played him, which I will touch on next, and he basically spoke. You know, he was there when he got informed with Batcher got blessed. He was aware of what Batcher was doing on the streets for them. So all that keeping in the shadow, it just takes for one individual to get butt hurt and go butt first out the door, right, and start telling. It is how Batcher he got tagged, and eventually, they started seeing all his wiggles, all his movement, and his power is reaching all the conflicts on the yards behind him and Coco. Because I'm mentioning one event from each angle, but it was back to back. If I say 5, 6, 7 camaradas, I'll be minimizing it. It was numerous events, and not all events, which was with Goko or with Batcher, the end goal was to wash up just to see if they could get a reaction from the other member. It's all a chess game, right? But at the same time, they're throwing away and sacrificing loyal sureños and camaradas, willing to do everything. They're only, you could say, is negative about them, but it's not, right? Is their loyalty, their faithfulness to follow rules without questioning. It's something that has been slowly being cut out recently. Nobody questions these individuals. Nobody questions an order mainly to cover yourself, your angles. You're entitled, remember, as a campolero, you're entitled to defend your pride, defend yourself, protect yourself. Never say no, but always question everything. That's the smart way. At the end, Batcher will get sent to ADX, slam down, so he wouldn't have that wiggle room on the yards room, all right. And then, as you guys heard my last story, Coco will play into that, Rube Soto and their issue and get involved in the conflict against MS. And now he's in hot water because he almost had a commissioner killed, but he did have two camaradas killed in the meanwhile. So they're really looking into it. But in reality, as long as MS don't come back, at least La Ranfla Nacional don't come back, ain't nobody gonna question him for him. At the end of the day, they try to move on a commissioner. They sat that commissioner right down because he can't defend himself no more. But nevertheless, the action was pushed on in a sense, right? Because that's how they work. They throw the bolita on one member, right? So that a lot can wash their hands. They threw it on Coco, and they're looking into his actions if it's true that disrespect like that was there. Which, knowing the individual, again, this individual loves his neighborhood, right? I will go so far as to say more than the EME. He's actually one of them members. But anyways, the reason why I'm touching on both these individuals, because a lot has asked me, which ones do I think have a lot of power? Well, here's two of them. Batcher till date is not really known of, but man, he has reached again to East LA, Southeast, Northeast, Orange County, IE. He respects. I haven't heard San Diego, but not only that, but that pipelines he has directly. There is pictures of him. I'm so sorry I can't look him up. I don't know how to do it. Usually I could do it from the computer to share with you, but he has pictures with them, aretes with Beltran Leyvas, and with every one of them he established something because they like the way he stays in the shadows. He's a smart individual, very powerful, but he's also one of them individuals that on the Lolo tells neighborhood, I don't want this race here, move, or every one of you is green lighted. If I find out they're there, all your neighborhood's gonna get it. So it's order, it's fear, period, right? Ain't no neighbor who wants to get green lighted, especially in Southern California, right? But there is those rotten apples, but they don't care about campoleros. Campoleros. That's the main point of the message. Don't be smart. Don't be misled to think you're gonna go in there, you're gonna be able to do your time, and sometimes they use your neighborhood against you. Like you see here, the area, the neighborhood you're from is pushed on you. And that is a means to move on you and throw you out for no reason. So don't take that chance, you know. I'm not saying it happens on every yard with every individual. No. All of them are different, right? But let me just ask this, right? If they tell you, hey, you got a chance to prove to this, and that, to this person, whatever, that you're worth something in them words. So you have to go through this angle. But by doing that, you have to throw your life away. Oh, and in the means, you might get stabbed, booked, or even killed. But more than likely, you're gonna end up on the yard, bunch of snitches and child molesters, rapists. Would you chance it to please somebody? Or you'd rather be righteous with those that tell you, hey, let me help you. Do something for yourself, for your family. Man, I wish I had that. I don't regret nothing I done. Cause that's the life I was living. But the message on here is for you to have that in look. To be like, it ain't worth it. But I hope I made sense in this one. Do excuse me. You guys know I'm in the hospital. Excuse the noise in the background. It's a 3-man room. I try my best. I can't find a time. But yeah, the main message on this one is, Billy's played chess. When you play chess, you always use pawns as throwaways to hook the other side of the board, right? It don't matter if you sacrifice and throw him out. Sureño guidelines are to be a soldado, to protect the raza. I don't know where and when it happened that it became a sureños. Dues are to follow Dolphin's dope money and his little kid caprichos. Be smart. I said it, I'm not gonna repeat it, but if you want to put your life in a Dolphin's hand, there is people out there. Go put it in their hands and tell me how that works for a week. So we gotta get that out of our head that we gotta give everything up, go inside and give everything up for a tecato to do his will with it. And you're not gonna always please a dolphin, because at the end of the day, they're always out for their gain. Anyways, last night I had a real good conversation with someone, and something came to light, but I will share it through a short. But I'll just leave this like this before the short. Please pay attention to what comes out of people's mouth. They tell on themselves. I heard someone took his channel got taken down, and it's what this is gonna consist of that person that got that call out of the blues, right? But anyways, I'll touch on that. Just pay attention. All that active members call me and this and that. You could tell it's a lie. Remember, once a weenie, always a weenie. With this said, please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. My love and prayers. Gracias.